Representative Bob Good from Virginia was one of 8 Republicans to vote to oust McCarthy. He joins us now to talk more about all of this. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. So first off, the big question here, I want to get your take. What led you to actually vote to oust McCarthy? Why did you feel that that is what you wanted to do?
Well, cutting right to the chase, the final straw was Saturday's continuing resolution, which is a representation of the failures of the past being revisited, the failures of this year, that we would pass an unconditional continuing resolution for 45 days because we had not done our job and passed our 12 spending bills, as Speaker McCarthy promised we would. And then it would be an unconditional continuing resolution that would keep in place all the Biden, Pelosi, Schumer policies that are destroying the country and under which the American people are suffering, not to mention the spending levels that are bankrupting our country, bankrupting our kids and our grandkids' financial futures. And we would do that with 209 Democrat votes in the House, only 1 opposing, and 51-0 Democrats supporting it in the Senate. That is what we've done in the past under Republican leadership when we've had House majorities. It's what we did with the Failed Responsibility Act, the unconditional debt ceiling agreement, where we unconditionally raised the debt ceiling to as much as we can spend between now and January 25, overwhelmingly supported by Democrats. That was another loser and a failure of Republican leadership. We cannot afford the status quo. That's how we got to $33 trillion national debt and over $2 trillion deficit this year. We need transformational change in Congress. That wasn't going to happen with Kevin McCarthy as Speaker.
When the vote began, did you think that the votes were there to actually remove McCarthy from his leadership? Was it kind of a gamble at that point? Or did you think this is what was going to happen?
I had thought we were somewhere in the range of 10 members. We had 11, as you know, vote to allow it to proceed, voted against tabling the motion. Ultimately, we had 8 who voted to vacate. And I thought that was the range that it would be. There was a couple others I thought might be there. But I will tell you that very few members of Congress actually privately will defend, or at least on the Republican side, will defend Kevin McCarthy privately. They've recognized that he's been a feckless, ineffective leader who's dillied and dallied and fretted and frittered away time and didn't lead us to passing our spending bills, didn't keep his commitments, would tell one group one thing, tell another group another thing. So privately, very few defended him. Privately, many knew that he was not the person to lead us in fighting with every tool at our disposal against the Biden, Pelosi, Schumer agenda that was in place. But of course, members of Congress are risk averse, and self-preservation and selfish ambition probably prevails. And so you have a reluctance to take risks and to go against the status quo. But we have a new day, a new opportunity to choose a speaker that reflects the conservative center of the conference, the conservative center of the Republican base who gave us a majority, and will be a true fighter and a true leader in the tough negotiations we have to have with the Senate and the White House.
And during a news conference last night, McCarthy did say that he does not have plans to run for the speaker position again. Is that surprising? Is that what you'd expect?
Well, I and many others had hoped that he would essentially take the high road and not put the conference through that. It was clear that there were far more than 8 that would oppose him if he were to try to run again. Everyone was basically ready. I shouldn't say everyone, but many members were ready to turn the page and move forward on someone who could get to 218. And this will be a win for the American people, in addition to Republicans across the country, because instead of having a coronation of sort of the next in line, the presumptive speaker, the one who no one can challenge, we will have a true contest. There's half a dozen or so members who've expressed their interest. We have a talented conference of qualified, experienced individuals. And so what we'll do is we'll vet those candidates. We'll debate those candidates. They'll present their sort of platforms of what they will do as Speaker, and we'll have that contest beginning Tuesday night with a House candidate forum, a Republican House candidate forum, and hopefully in short order, Wednesday, Thursday, or soon thereafter, we will emerge united from the Republican conference and vote someone in with 221 votes on the House floor.
And that leads into my next question here. Who do you feel would be best to replace McCarthy as Speaker, and specifically what qualities are you and the Republican Party overall looking for?
Well, I'll dodge the first part because I think it would be premature before I've sat down with colleagues and really tried to and I know these individuals personally, of course, but to really vet them, what their plans would be, how they would be different, what their commitments are, and to try to assess them together, because not one of us can choose a speaker. You know, a handful of us can block someone, but we want to come together and find, again, that consensus for not just 218, hopefully 221. But what I'm looking for, number one, is a leader. And there's certain leadership qualities that you need to lead an organization, especially one as tough as leading a House majority, and a fighter, someone who doesn't surrender quickly, doesn't give in, understands leverage, understands negotiation, which has been absent, quite frankly, from Republican leadership for decades, I would argue. Someone, again, who reflects the conservative center of the Congress. They may not be as conservative as me. I may not agree with them on everything. That's part of being a member of a 221 majority coalition, if you will. And someone who's just committed to doing everything we can to fight the Democrat agenda and recognizes it's destroying the country and the status quo is unsustainable.
And you already kind of touched on this, but we know that we saw quite a few votes happen as McCarthy was trying to get that leadership position initially. Do you expect that this next vote is going to take as many rounds and as much time to get a new speaker chosen?
I don't think so. I think what we will do is stay in Republican conference and battle it internally. It'll be intense. It'll be tough. You'll have divergent opinions, of course. I think we share some general common objectives, but how to get there and who's that best person, I'm sure will be deliberated. But I think we will be committed to staying in there as long as we can to get hopefully 221, but to 218 to bring it to the floor and do it in one vote.
And during a news conference last night, McCarthy described you and the other 7 Republicans who voted against him as, quote, angry and chaotic. What were you thinking when you heard that, and what do you say to something like that?
Well, on the angry side, yes, I'm angry that we didn't keep our commitments. I'm angry that we didn't pass our spending bills. I'm angry that we didn't keep our commitment to going back to pre-COVID spending for non-defense discretionary. I'm angry that we haven't used the debt ceiling or the appropriations process to try to secure the border to leverage that. I'm angry that we haven't went after the weaponization of the government against its citizens, that we haven't used every tool at its disposal. And I'm angry about that. I'm not angry that somebody doesn't get to be speaker. We need to be angry about more than just not being speaker. And so chaos, you know, I tell folks, oh, well, you've shut down the House. You know, we're not going to do anything for the next week or two. What do you think we were going to do this week or next week under Speaker McCarthy that was going to make a difference in the lives of Americans? What do you think we were going to pass out of the House, that the Senate and the White House were going to adopt? Why did you think that we would all of a sudden start to fight under Speaker McCarthy in a way that we didn't over the past 9 months, or that we would pass our spending bill suddenly, implementing Republican conservative policies and cuts in spending if we didn't do that for the previous 9 months? We need a change. This gives us an opportunity for that change. This was a win for the American people and against the uniparty system and the swamp cartel.
And I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask anyway. We know that Representative Raskin said that, you know, the Democrats are going to nominate Hakeem Jeffries to be Speaker of the House. Is that something that Republicans would even consider?
Never, none, zero, I'm sure. I'm sure Hakeem Jeffries will get 213 votes one time, because I think we will pass with 221 our speaker. And so, you know, I certainly expect Democrats to vote for him. I don't believe any Republican would ever vote for a Democrat for speaker, not in the current House anyway.
Do you feel there's unity in the Republican Party, or is there a divide right now?
Well, you want to have genuine unity. You know, we don't have faux unity or false unity or pretend unity, which is what you have, frankly, when there's, you know, when they're, oh, this is the person, the only person that can be speaker. Everybody has to vote for this person. We know they're going to win. Gosh, if you say you're running against them, you're going to be retaliated against. You're going to suffer consequence. You may not get your committee assignment or your chairmanship or money for your reelection campaign. That's what you've had in the past, and that's why we have always. That's why what happened in January is so historic, where 20 members were willing to risk their own political future, their own ambition, to sacrifice what was in their best interest, what they thought was best for the country. We eventually did come together and elect Speaker McCarthy after 15 rounds, but then you saw 8 members willing to take that risk again here. Now you will have us be forced, essentially, to unify. We will have to, because we're going to stay in that conference meeting until we do. We will have to come together, and there's more that unites us. That is true. There's more that unites us. We're united against the Democrat radical agenda that's destroying the country. Again, we may have different opinions on how far to go, what's reasonable, what's practical, what compromise looks like that doesn't surrender or capitulate. It certainly doesn't look like what we did on Saturday, and that's why we have a new speaker coming.
All right, Representative Bob Good there of Virginia. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. Is there anything you want to add before I let you go?
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate the time.
Of course. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You as well.